Does that make sense?
What you're talking about is so huge. It's the idea of believing that the other people around you are good faith actors.
Yeah.
Or believing that they're trying to do the right thing. Believe that first before you believe that they literally just wanted to make your life miserable. Like, because if you think about that argument, why? Okay, let me ask you this question: why do you think Janet does that? Janet just wants to make my life miserable. Yeah. Do you really?
Janet's just a cunt.
Do you think Janet? Do you think Janet literally gets up in the morning and goes, "How do I make Chris's life absolutely miserable?"
And it doesn't mean there aren't Janets out there.
There sure could be.
Right.
But what are the odds that that's the case?
Yeah.
And the answer is very, very slim.
Right.
Right. So when you do get that, and believe me, there have been. I had this one gal that worked with me. The most passive aggressive.
What was her name, Nathan? Hey everybody, I'm Eric Oberembt, and you're listening to Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. We talk about real shit, what's on our minds, and don't give a fuck if it makes you feel a little uncomfortable. So sit back, strap in, and get ready for some real shit. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. I'm your host, Eric Oberembt. We have a very special show for you today that has been in the works for fucking ever, actually. We've been trying to put this together for a while now, and luckily an event came to town, and so we were able to pull this off. And I have the honor of bringing in my friend, Nathan Tebedo.
Hi, Eric.
Thank you for being here.
Dude, it's taken way too long.
It has taken way too long.
Yeah. We were at the verge of setting a meeting to set this meeting.
We were. Like, if people could see the text strings that went back and forth to try and actually make this happen, like it has been a struggle.
Yes.
Like our lives. Here's the first question that I wanted to ask you. We'll introduce you to everybody and who you do and what you are, which again, it's not even what this is about, right? But I wrote a question down while we were downstairs talking. Mm-hmm. And the question was, how in the fuck are we friends? And the reason I asked that is because I have all these different people in my life that I am shocked today that are my friends. Guys like Reggie, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
And honestly, like, I mean, and like really good humans like yourself. How did we end up meeting, if you remember? And B, how are we friends?
Okay. How did we meet?
I don't remember. I'm actually being completely honest. Like, I don't remember.
So, I'll give you my version.
Okay.
And maybe it'll spark something for you.
Yeah.
But I believe that my first encounter with you,
it's usually an encounter
where we spoke to one another was actually at a RoofCon. I say a RoofCon because I think it was maybe three or four years ago.
So the one that was in here in Houston, probably.
It was. I think it was the one. It was the one before John Maxwell spoke. Because like it was 2 years ago that it was like Maxwell and Milet.
Sounds right.
And what? So anyway, I had been aware of you for a little bit because you kind of started to pop up a little bit here and there, and I was like, I've heard of this guy.
Yeah.
But what I remember specifically was that you and Paul Reed had joined forces with a few others to create Roofers in Recovery.
Yes, correct.
And my wife is a recovering alcoholic, and she is 9. Sorry if I blow this, babe. 9 years.
Okay,
I believe.
Nice.
And she got her master's degree. She got a master's degree in human nutrition and dietetics, and her capstone project, which is kind of like their master's project. Like if you get a doctorate, it's like a doctoral thesis or whatever. Okay. She did a capstone project.
Smart kid shit.
She's a smart kid.
Yeah.
But her whole project that she did was dietary and nutrition planning for people in recovery. So she wrote a program for that because she went through the program.
Step one, stop eating so much ice cream.
Well, I mean, her thing was she went through a couple, I think she went to a facility once, I know for sure, maybe twice. Once again, sorry, babe. It was a little bit before me.
Yeah.
But she remembers specifically that it was just get you off the smack, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Alcohol, drugs, whatever. And you could drink as much coffee as you wanted. You could eat as much candy, as much sugar intake as you could possibly handle.
We'll worry about that problem later.
Yeah, like nicotine and tobacco. What didn't matter.
Speaking of Zyn, for all your nicotine needs, we're trying to get them to sponsor us. So every time I do a thing and I'm like, Zyn, for all your nicotine needs. It's delicious. They have cinnamon, citrus. Cinnamon's my favorite, but what's yours?
They actually are pretty good, if I'm honest.
Sorry. Go on.
So she noticed that, and she got sober twice, I believe.
Okay.
And the second time, she was like, I'm not doing it that way again. And so she kind of, on her own personal accord, just decided that she was going to try and eat right, and she was going to work out, and she was going to apply these proactive activities rather than maybe the distracting activities.
Yeah, right.
And so I know that's kind of a long way around, but when I found out that you and Paul had started doing this together, I wanted to talk to you guys about what she had done because I thought maybe there might be some kind of thing.
Okay, I do remember that.
I believe that was our first conversation.
Got it. Then we actually ended up working together.
Yeah.
Which I will have to say, like, we don't do a lot of work talk stuff here, but I will say that this sounds really, the time we spent together.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
The time we spent together, it was touching. It really did change like how I operate my business. And I think that gets lost a lot of times where people think that they've got everything figured out. Right? Like I'd been doing this for years, right? Yeah. It's the only thing I've ever done. And there was so much that I didn't know about how to structure different things and different processes and systems. There's still things, a lot of shit I don't know. But I will have to say like that time together. And I think that time together working on those things like we did is what gave me a passion for helping and coaching other people as well. In the different little avenues, because I saw like what it did for me. And, and I've had a bunch of different coaches, since then, not like business related, but, whatever. And it's changed my perspective on all of that. And I think that I was probably in the beginning, one of those people that's like, who the fuck's going to help me? I've been doing this for longer than you have or whatever. Right. And that experience that we had like completely changed my lens on that 1,000%. So congratulations.
Yo, thank you.
You made the fucking,
that's super,
you made the asshole
super
guy.
Cool.
Yeah. Like I
remember working on some of the stuff that we did with you. And one of the things because there are some clients and people that I work with and I will, I learn something from pretty much everybody, but some things kind of stick in my head a little bit. And this one isn't necessarily useful to everyone, but one of the things I thought was super, one of the core values that you have at your company was fun. And one of the defining factors about having fun is cool. And that conversation we had about that when you were literally trying to articulate how you wanted it to be cool to work at D&M. And I was like, that is really cool. You wanted people to be nerds for D&M or people that like that when you guys did something, they wanted to be involved, they had to be involved. And if you weren't involved, you were uncool.
Right.
And I thought that is the coolest way to look at your culture. And it was funny because you were like, kind of like just kicking it around and thinking like, how do I define what this means? Because everybody's kind of cool in their own way, but simultaneously it was really fun.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, man,
I wanted other people outside of the company to be jealous of what we had inside the company so that they would want to work for the company. Or they would want to be, they didn't give a shit what our widget was, if it was roofing or whatever it was, and they just wanted to be part of that. Right. And it was cool to wear D&M stuff. That was the other thing. Like I wanted the logo to be cool where like people would like just wear it because.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That was always the goal.
And a lot of your shirts and stuff were like that too, especially there like 5-6 years ago when like 80s retro was in, and like your D&M shirts all looked like a t-shirt I wore while riding my banana seat bike.
Yeah. We got to come up with some new ones here recently. The one that you never saw was my first like catchphrase that I put on shirts was fuck fitting in, stand out. And so like awesome. I put a roof as the U or whatever, and I put it on the back of the shirts. And so all the laborers had them, all the guys had them. They loved it. Well, so did Tegan. I didn't know that she worked at school.
Oh no!
Nothing happened. Okay. Nothing happened. But it would have been hilarious.
Parent-teacher conference.
But she wore it all the time, and she gets mad down here because they're a little bit more strict in her school here. And she's like, "Daddy, I want to wear that shirt again." And I'm like, "You can't. Like, I'm not going to take a chance." Like, I was friends with the principal.
Yeah, in this case, we want to fit in.
And then I got the shirt. And then I got the shirt from Goldstein that says fucking send it.
Yes.
On the back, which I love.
I think he got Jim to wear that shirt. Actually.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Those are good shirts.
Yeah. Those are good shirts.
Yeah. So anyway,
sure.
But that's how we're friends. That's how we became friends.
Well, I think though that was like a connectivity thing. Like, hey, there's maybe some co-work that could happen here. And it wasn't even for me. It was like my wife. But then you and I did some work together and some other things, like together with your company and then with the CRA. And then we just got some time together. And I think that time when you and I just got to talk, and I think that the click happened.
That's what people don't get to do anymore, right? And I talk about this all the time, and it's one of the reasons that I have the podcast, right? And people are probably really fucking tired of hearing me say this, but one of the reasons that I started the podcast was so that I could intentionally sit down with someone for a half hour, and have a real conversation, because our entire lives are built around, hey, how you doing? Good? Kids good? Wife good? Yup. Great. I'll see you at the next event.
Yeah.
Right? Like that. I mean, for the most part, that's 90% of our day, right? Unless you're coaching or whatever, and you know, like you got to spend that hour. But even that, you're talking generally about business or how they put a culture into their, but not like about the person so much. Maybe you gloss it for 10 minutes, you know, in the beginning to.
Well, you can get 30 minutes into a conversation with just pleasantries.
Right.
I mean, and honestly, like the better a salesperson you are, the longer you can go.
Right.
Because you know a little bit about so you find out this guy likes baseball, or they're really into politics, or, well, that's maybe one you want to stay away from, but, or not. But they, you know, this person is into cars or boats or skiing or whatever. And the more of those little common ground places you find, the more you kind of BS your way through whatever polite amount of time you should talk to them is. Yep. And then you kind of have warm fuzzies about that person. But if you don't go kind of to that next layer, you're not sure if you actually get along with them or not.
Right. Or connect.
Yeah. Like maybe you don't connect. Maybe you get past that and you find out that like the two of you just differ so widely on how you see everything, or your personalities just kind of clash or whatever. Yeah. But those pleasantries, you could know somebody for 10 years just having pleasantries conversations with them at an event.
I know a ton. Or in passing, or at church. Right. I know a ton of those people, right? But we got an opportunity to actually sit down.
On a couple of occasions.
Yeah, and have like real conversations, which, again, that's why I do this, right? Because we go to conferences too, and I'll do these. I love doing them here way more than doing them at conferences, because it's loud and, you know, you can't have like an intimate setting, you know, type of thing. But at least at those, you get to stop the person, right? And be like, sit down. We're going to sit down for a half hour, and we're just going to talk about something, right? Something that you care about, something that you're passionate about, because that's what will connect with an audience as well. And then they get to see a little glimpse into who the real Nathan is, which is scary, right? Nobody wants to fucking...
Nobody wants to see that.
Nobody wants to see that. But that's the thing, is that everybody does want to see that, right? Everybody wants to see, at least I think, I do, I should say. I shouldn't say everybody. I want to see what's like in here, right? I don't give a shit what anybody does. I don't give a shit how much money somebody has. I don't care how many widgets they sold, right? I don't care if you stand up on stage and you're like, I sold $10 million this year. I give 0 fucks. Are you a good human? What do you do to give back? And what do you care about? Right? Because at the end of the day, I feel like that's what I'm going to be judged on.
Well, I just heard this yesterday that, forgive me, I'm sure you could probably find it, but I heard somebody say that sociologists are saying that our newest generation, is it Gen Z, are being called the loneliest generation. And I think it has to do with, they were talking about how like they have all kinds of connectivity, but that is a substitution for real connectivity. So it feels like you're connected, but you're not. Like you could know Peyton Manning, where he went to high school, where he went to college, what the names of his kids are, the name of his wife, where he likes to. You could know all of this stuff about him. And if you walked up and said something to Peyton Manning, he'd be like, I don't know who you are. Right. So you know everything about. So then all of a sudden there's like this false sense of connectivity. And I think that they're saying that the Gen Z has this false sense of connectivity because of how connected they are.
Yeah.
But then they still feel really, really alone.
Because it's all surface.
Because it is all surface. Or it's not, or it's actually a lie. It's just what somebody else is showing you about their life.
Right.
You know, when you look on social media.
They're not seeing the dark shit.
They don't see the dark stuff or how that person actually feels. It's like if you truly know somebody, you can kind of, I think you can kind of see when they're BSing. When you're like, Eric, I saw you post that thing. That didn't sound like you at all.
Right.
It didn't seem like you. And you're like, man, well, I'm trying this new thing. Okay. So that connectivity, though, requires vulnerability. And, well, you know, who makes the first move? You know, and I think some of the younger generations, they might even struggle with where to find it to make the first move.
Yeah.
Like, where do you go to have a conversation with somebody? And then furthermore, how do you have a conversation? Whereas I think if you're in like our generation, we know how to have a conversation. We just sometimes get lazy.
Right. Oh, 100%. I think that is definitely the biggest. I was just going to ask the question of what do you think, because you were talking about social media, like what do you think the biggest drawback, you know, the biggest positive and the biggest negative of that is? Because we were talking about that downstairs a little bit of people posting certain things and the impact that it may or may not have on people, and questioning what people put out in like quotes, you know, and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like dig into that a little bit, what we were talking about with the quotes and stuff. You don't have to talk about the specific one, but like what that does and like how we need to, God, the word isn't address, but like the word, be aware. Be aware.
Well, so the positive for social media is I think it's entertaining. I mean, I had to take Instagram off of my phone.
Yeah.
Instagram. Facebook, not so much, but Instagram specifically had my number. They were like, oh, you want to look at muscle cars, motorcycles, surfing, rock climbing, skydiving. You want to look at exotic sports cars, really cool landscape pictures. And I'm like, yes, I do. And, you know, 20 minutes later, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Just they got me like that. And I was like, okay, I got to take this off my phone, because I could slip right in there, and I'm a dude, right? So it's pictures and video. I don't have to read anything.
Right.
I'm just like,
don't have to
all
think.
day long. Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah.
So entertainment, I think the broadening of your horizons, like social media is kind of an easy way to access other things. Mm-hmm. I say that with a caveat because the algorithm tends to reward the things you like the most, which means you can social media can kind of become your own personal echo chamber.
See, and I think that that's the big problem today, because I think that's why we're so divided as a people now, right? Because back in the day, whether it was news or whatever it was, you learned things from both sides of a conversation, right? You learned like actual facts, and then you got to make a decision on, you know, base your opinion based off of two different sets of facts.
That, or we were all only getting one opinion.
But that's all you get now.
Right.
Is one opinion, is what I mean, right? Because of the algorithm, the social media side, like you don't ever see anybody else's unless somebody jumps in and trolls and, you know, like goes crazy on your shit. I think that's one of the big things that people miss today, though, is being able to have that open-ended conversation of having that empathy to understand where somebody else is coming from, even if they disagree with that person.
Or to have a disagreement within fist length of the other person.
Right.
Right. I know it sounds a little maybe Neanderthalish, but like there are things that you might say or think, but you're never going to say them out loud when that person's right in front of you.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, so I think algorithms.
Yeah, some of those people do just need a fucking kick in the dick.
Some people could probably use a good punch.
Have you ever just looked somebody and been like, man, you need to have the shit kicked out of you once? Like, I bet you never got the shit kicked out of you ever.
Every time I look at my computer, I wish I could kick the shit out of my computer.
Well,
it just
that's
bothers
fair.
me.
Yeah,
but
I just look at people.
No, you're right. People, yeah. I mean, from time to time, you look at somebody, you're just like, man, I wonder if have you ever had to pay the price for the things you say?
There you go. Yeah, that's a nicer way to put it.
Right. I've thought that before,
yeah,
you know, but
because they haven't though.
Some people, some people haven't. I've never literally like just mouthed off, and then whether you were right or wrong, like even if you mouthed off and you were right, somebody went, I don't agree with that, and I don't like how you said it. Pop.
Right.
And you're like, I guess maybe I should have thought how I said.
Or they'll just jump online and motherfuck you.
Or go online and just
like you can't do that in real life.
No.
Like you'll just get punched in the fucking face.
Yeah. Somebody will make you pay for that.
It drives me up a goddamn
wall. But that is a downside of social media.
Yep.
I also there's books written about it, but the ability to become famous is now or has become only a function of how well you know how to use social media, and not because you really have anything to offer.
Right.
That even felt hot coming out of my mouth, but I feel
it's cringy.
Well, you can just put content out,
right?
And the quality of your content, some people go, well, people know the difference. I don't know. Because people will get really amped up about meeting somebody who they see all over their feed all the time, even though that person's content might be kind of meh. But how famous they are, how well they're recognized has nothing to do with their content. It actually has more to do with the fact that they know how to put themselves out there that much. I think that's a negative consequence of social media.
So what do you think is good content? For you?
Well, for me, that's tough for me. I've been very disillusioned with it lately. Like right now, I don't like shallow content, but the problem is that shallow is different for everybody. Mm-hmm. Like what I might call shallow might be a real light bulb for somebody.
Example.
And so, an example of that. So, what would be an example of something I might call shallow content? It's probably going to be the hustle and grind.
Yep. Okay.
The hustle and grind stuff.
Okay.
And this is where, to me, I perceive that as shallow, because I do believe that effort matters. Mm-hmm. Effort matters, and your own perception of your effort is really, really, really important. And you can't just sit on a couch or do a half-assed job all the time and then expect that you or anybody else is going to benefit from that. It's just not the case. Okay. So when somebody goes, the hustle and grind, I'm like, duh.
Right. Obviously.
I'm like, duh.
Yeah.
However, for someone else, they might find that as encouraging.
Right.
Like somebody else might go, yeah, you know what? You're right. You're right. I was starting to feel a little discouraged, and I do need to hustle and grind. This is just part of the process. Right. And so somebody might grab encouragement from that, whereas I'm like, duh.
Right.
So that's not really fair necessarily to the content creator, but it is a message but one of the things though is that like when you're trying to put out content constantly to get in front of people all the time, putting out good thoughts is becoming something I think rare.
I think it's intent.
Yes.
So for me, it's intent, right? And if they're talking, whether it's hustle and grind or it's like being very specific about your hustle and grind, and do you have a plan for this hustle and grind? Do you have whatever it is, right? And I'm just using it as an example.
Yeah.
You did, right? But I think that the intent behind it is what really matters. And I get extremely irritated at the folks that are putting out content just to put out content to get attention, but don't actually have anything substantial behind it.
Example.
That they're trying to help people. Yeah, I got a lot of them. Y'all know who you fucking are. Oh my God, I hate this when you fucking talk and then my phone thinks that I'm trying to take a note. I'm not trying to talk into my phone. So all my notes are fucked up now. But the intent is not actually to help anybody, right? I think true, my personal opinion is true good content is content that is put out to genuinely help other people, right? Whether it's even saying, hey, look what I did, right?
Sure.
If it's look what I did so that you know that you can do the same thing too, great. If it's just an ego thing, fuck you, right? I think that's not the point of it, right? If it makes you feel good, then I guess it makes you feel good. But is the intent behind it to be better and to help other people be better? That's my definition of good content.
Do you feel that you're capable of identifying somebody's intent for their content without knowing them personally?
Sometimes.
Not
all the time. Not all the time. But I do think sometimes it's obvious. I think sometimes it's obvious, and it shocks me that it's not obvious to others that eat it up, right? Because of what you just said, that they are putting out so much, they're making this fake, famous, whatever it is, right? Making themselves
a run at being an influencer,
right? Because as if you're going to take that label, whatever it is, right? You're trying to influence people in a positive way, hopefully.
So then what you're saying is, if you can't really identify a consistent, positive, influential message, then it's just noise that they're trying to create. It's just this and it's that and it's this and it's that and it's this and it's that, and there's no
substance to it. Yeah, I think noise is the perfect word. That they're just trying to make enough noise to get enough people to pay attention to them, because then maybe they can monetize it, and maybe they can get enough clicks and they can get enough views, and then they can
the American dream.
Yeah, and then they can make a couple $1,000s or whatever it is, right? And I guess good for you if that's your business model, right? I just personally think that the purpose of having this platform that we all have access to now, right? Like you used to have to actually be somebody and have done something to inform people. Now you can just fucking be anybody, and there's a platform to go out there and put shit into the world.
It's true.
That may or may not be real.
It's true.
Does that make sense?
And I battle with going, is that a bad thing?
I think sometimes it can be. I don't think there's ever a yes or no answer, right? I think we can lean one way though.
Well, it's definitely, I think what you're saying, when somebody does that, it is bad.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, I also kind of feel like there really truly isn't anything in life that's new. Like even social media, we talk about how new it is. I'm like, the concept around it really isn't. Because you used to have, a town crier walking through the streets, ringing a bell, heralding the news,
right?
According to who?
Yeah,
That's then they'd all go down to the pub and social media each other over a pint of mead.
Mead, yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. And then they'd have some maize. Yeah.
And they would all, social media each other in that small community. So then you have this broader base where it happens. So I feel like it's the same thing, just at like a mass or larger scale. There's also a much more diverse level of voices. And so I think it is good on the one hand, but look, just like buying a used car, it's buyer beware. When you're paying attention to stuff and you're like, this sounds good and this sounds cool, and I don't know, I really follow this person or I dig that one, pay attention. Like, are you letting something in that's okay or that is good? And so, but the good news is like you have just as much access to the good stuff as you do the bad stuff.
But people are attracted to train wrecks.
But then you know what help us with that? Relationships.
Right.
Because then you can go talk to somebody you know about what you're feeling or what you're thinking or what you read. Is this real? Does this feel right? Does this seem like it's something I should do or be a part of? And then that person might know who you're talking about, or they might not, but at least they know you.
Right.
And that relationship can help counterbalance all of the data intake.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you just have Nathan over here wanting to watch sport-like videos.
And I think maybe that is the challenge then, is challenging people to have more of those conversations.
100%.
Right? It's challenging people to take the time to actually have those conversations and not just do this, right? And I understand the irony of the fact that we're talking about this on a show.
Well, we're just recording ourselves doing it, which is what's cool, and somebody else can participate in it, but don't mistake this conversation that Eric and I have, or that Joe Rogan has, or that any other podcaster has, for a relationship.
Right. Like with the viewer, you mean?
Yeah, like if you're watching this and you want to know me,
right,
reach out. Or if you want to know Eric, reach out. But by no means,
unless you're fucking weird, like don't do it then.
Well, it'll depend on what kind of weird you are, because I might be into it.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you decided to be friends with me, so I mean, so that's fair. Okay, let's switch gears. Let's switch gears a little bit. Really weird, deep question that I've never asked anybody.
Oh,
never asked anybody. And I want to get your take on it. Why do you think that we as humans are here?
Like on the planet, exist?
Alive.
Alive?
Why do you think we're here?
All right. So
it can be a purpose question. It can be a whatever, but like I've grown in so many different areas, and like what I used to think is not what I believe now, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not necessarily talking faith, religion, whatever, but like that can be part of it if that's what it is for you. But I'm curious, because I've never asked anybody this question. I don't know if it's like fear of what the answer would be or what it was, but I'm actually curious, just because I know that you're a deep individual and like talk about things. Why do you think we're here?
So for me, and I believe this to be a fundamental truth, some people are going to disagree with it, but I believe one of the best statements about the reason for mankind was given in a document called the Westminster Confession of Faith. So, big surprise, I'm a Christian. I do believe in God. And in the Westminster Confession of Faith, a bunch of biblical scholarly guys got together and then decided to try and answer what some of the deepest, most difficult questions about life and actually about scriptures and theology. They tried to sit down and like just hammer through these things, and they created this book called the Westminster Confession of Faith.
And was it based on one sect, one religion?
It's based primarily off of the finished product of the scripture. Okay. Finished product meaning, after I'm on the spot. Council of somebody listening to this is screaming at their thing right now going, I know who it is.
Or no one is has any idea.
Right. Once they decided that they had a complete version of the scriptures, all 66 books. There's also some additional resources and material I think that these guys used, because just because it didn't make it into the Bible doesn't mean it wasn't good. There wasn't other good stuff out there. And the first question in the Westminster Confession of Faith is, what is the chief end of man? Chief end, purpose, reason.
Yep.
And the answer that the Westminster Confession has is to glorify God, and it's to glorify God and to worship Him forever.
Forever meaning?
Forever.
Okay.
So I think that's why man is here.
Okay.
I believe that man was created by God, and I believe that man was created by God to glorify God and to have community with God. And I think that's why we're here.
Okay.
So I know that's like, the question you asked was this big.
Yeah, no, I know.
The answer I gave was kind of also.
Yeah, I was curious where it would go. Because I know that you got, like you've got your contractor fellowship group things on Wednesdays, and you guys talk about a lot of this kind of stuff. And I am, I'm the guy that found my higher power through AA.
Sure.
Right. Have always been, and to be completely fucking frank, have always been very anti-religious, and still am to a certain extent, but I'm very spiritually driven in the fact that I also believe in a higher power, right? Whether I call him God, whether I call him whatever it is, but I never get to have these kind of conversations generally with people, and I'm actually very intrigued. Because all right, back up. Here's why I'm intrigued. One of the reasons is because we moved here, right? And this has got to be the most fucking churches per capita.
Meaning Texas.
Holy shit. Yes. But I mean, churches abound,
It's
right?
a very churched up state.
And I can't go to a goddamn, well, that was funny I said that. I can't go to a fucking, lunch with my daughter, right, at school without a dad coming up and going, y'all found a good church yet? And I'm like, fuck me, man. Can we just talk? I don't care about your fucking church. I don't care about I care, I care for you, and I'm glad that you have what you have, but let's not do that at lunch at the cafeteria at school, right? But it's normal down here, and that's fine, and I'm happy with everybody. But it's the conversation now that I have to have with my 8-year-old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's where a lot of this stems from, because I've had to really look inside, because when you have younger kids, what do they ask every fucking day? Why?
Yep.
Why? And my answer is always very vague. A, because she's 8, right? But also because I don't want her, because she had some kids that are oh, if you don't do this or you don't believe this, you're wrong at school, because that's kind of what their parents taught them. Right. And so I struggle with that, because I don't ever want her to judge somebody else for their belief system, because thank God I found AA and found my spirituality, which differs from yours, which differs from Bob's, which differs from Bill's. Right. And of course I use the 2 names from AA. Fucking Bill and Bob.
Love you guys.
Yeah. Right. But it's such a weird conversation. Do you understand what I'm saying? And
with the 8-year-old or with the person who asked you where you go to church?
Nah, fuck that guy. I don't really care about that guy. Right. I really don't. I know that sounds harsh, but I don't give a fuck about that guy. Right. I care about my daughter and how then she is going to be treated, right? And B, then how she's going to treat other people that either do or don't align with whatever she decides to believe.
Right.
And how people treat her that either do or don't agree with what she chooses to believe. Does that make sense? And that's where I run into it. That's where I run into a real big problem.
How complicated is that to take? It's complicated enough for adults, because you're here trying to explain to me this question,
right? And
we're talking about an 8-year-old girl. I mean, I think that one of the things to keep in mind, and so this, okay, all cards on the table. Yeah. My first child just turned 9 months.
Yep.
So, but I've thought about these things for sure. And I was a kid once. I know you might not believe it, but
not with that mustache.
Kids are just kind of evil in a lot of ways, right? So we're adults.
Yeah.
But they will weaponize anything they can.
Yeah, they really fucking will.
They'll weaponize anything that they can to try and solidify themselves. And maybe their group, and then either use that as the definition to accept somebody else or cast somebody else out. How did I not just describe all people?
Right.
And kids are just the little, most least sophisticated form of it, really.
Right.
And so the first thing, with Tegan, it's look, they think they know something, And what they know may be true, maybe it isn't. But at the end of the day, they're being mean about it.
Right.
Right? Because at some point, these questions are going to get more complicated and more difficult. And so at this point right now, I think it's like, it's got to have more to do with understanding how to deal with adversity and other people in the way that they think.
That's fair.
You know, versus parsing this, like, am I going to sit down and talk about teleology with an 8-year-old girl?
Yeah,
probably not. But being able to explain that, like, look, they have some beliefs that they feel strongly about, but they're using those beliefs to be mean to you, and that's not cool.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, maybe I could be wrong on that. Other parents might be going, no, that's not how you explain it. But
I think that's a perfectly acceptable way to explain it.
And then the question, is right back at Tegan. Like, do you ever feel that you believe something and then you're mean to somebody else about how you believe? Right. And then, well, maybe sometimes I am. Yeah. Well, see, everybody tends to do it.
Well, she fucking better not. It's funny, though, because, like, I was that asshole, right? Like, super judgmental, and still am, but, like, super judgmental prick for most of my life. And it's funny how when you identify, like when you can be self-aware of that, how much you teach your kids not to be.
I hope so.
That, right? Like, I mean, that's all my wife and I do is teach her to be the opposite of basically what I was, when I was younger, was like, don't do these things. And I think in turn, like, it's made her a way better human than I ever was.
That's my hope. My hope and prayer is, like, my awareness, like, I can increase hers by having her overcome her not having to overcome my lack of awareness, because I'm able to impart that, and then she can take that even further. Yeah. Because I think you're right, but then I see evidence almost everywhere I look of that unwillingness to listen. And look, here's my deal. Like, even if you think you're right, like, let's just say I have this thought or this opinion about something, and I know I'm right about it. Great. Beating somebody over the head with it very rarely did them any good, and probably didn't do you any good either.
Right.
Like, I've made the mistake of getting into arguments with people before, and in some cases kind of smashing them a little bit, and then almost having like a one-night stand guilt the next day. Like, I really did not act well last night. I did not say good things. I did not treat that person well. Right. And who cares whether I'm right or wrong at this point? Right. And I want to try and short circuit that for her as much as I possibly can. And human beings still do it. We see it on the Facebook groups and this all the time. It's like there's the pile-ons, and then this person's this and this person's that, and everybody. I bet you this is a guess. 80% of that's just sport. Yeah. It's just like, it's like they might talk and act the same way in a bar after a few beers at a roofing conference, because they're all just bullshitting, and whatever is what it is. Yeah. But like at this point, 8 years old, she's starting to see the way that people think and what they do with what they think they know or what they believe in. Yeah. It's tough, man. Like, having a kid that age, it is. And it's only going to get fucking worse. Like, I am not. Until they quit asking you. No, and then at some point they're like, right. But then she knows everything. Right. Then she just fucking knows everything. You're going to have to ask her. Fuck. So let me ask you this. Out of all the stuff that you do, personal and work-wise, what are you the most passionate about that you do on a day-to-day? On a day-to-day. I mean, it can be your kid, right? Whatever. It can be whatever you want it to be. But I'm just curious, like, what drives you now? Because it's different than it probably was 10 years ago. So, I mean, on the daily, for sure, is my little girl. Okay. She is. Tell me her name again. Delaney. Okay, Delaney. She's only 9 months at this point, and I'm trying to spend as much time with her as I possibly can. Yeah. And I actually do get to spend quite a bit of time with her. Yep. And so watching her develop, it's been a blast. It's challenging for sure, but I also, from every parent in the world has also told me it goes by so fast. So fast. Don't take it for granted. So I'm like trying to be very diligent about not taking that for granted and just enjoying these moments that I get with her. And that is definitely a huge passion for me right now, in doing that. I'm not like, I've probably come to a bit of a stagnation in my drive as far as some other things go.
Okay.
Not that I'm not driven and not that I don't have energy, but I've gotten a chance to do a lot of really, really cool things. And the position that I'm in now, so I kind of, somewhere around my early 30s, I kind of figured out that like this whole coaching thing and like doing this business to business relationships and effort and pouring into these guys and these gals and these small businesses, I really love it and I love doing it. And so I started thinking, okay, how can I orient my life to start to move me towards a position where I can do this for a living? And so I kind of figured somewhere in my late 40s, maybe my early 50s, I may have enough experience and reputation to be able to become like a business coach and to help people.
Okay.
With that. Happened like 10 years early.
Right.
And so I've been chasing that and working on that and building that and trying to get better at doing it, which I do through gym, for it'll be 6 years in January now. I think I've been doing it full time. And so I love that. But I can also feel that like some of my passions and my drivers are shifting a little bit, and I don't know quite what that is.
Is that the anxiety stuff that we were talking about prior when that started?
I think it might be. I think it might be.
You said a couple years ago, right?
Yeah. So it was a few years ago that actually Jim Johnson and my wife started noticing this shift in me before I did, which is kind of normal for my life. Like people will notice things about me before I do.
I think that's normal though.
Maybe it is. Yeah. That. And when my wife and Jim kind of started bringing this up to me, I was like, that's weird. And so now all of a sudden it's kind of on my radar a little bit. But then I started just experiencing, like physically and visibly experiencing like something's not clicking like it used to anymore. Mm-hmm. And it would have been it probably started right after I turned 40.
Okay.
Which I was like, for a while, I'm like, midlife crisis. So do I need to wear like a button-down shirt, unbuttoned?
Go buy a Lambo.
Get a convertible Corvette or something like that, or whatever,
and a side piece.
And then I got to get a side chick. Yeah. So, but I didn't think that was necessary. Although I did buy a motorcycle. So
did you? You did it.
Maybe it was part of it.
Maybe that was part of it.
But I started to feel this pretty consistently in noticing this effect in my life where it was like, and I'm not rich, like I don't have it all. So it's not like I blew up and got all the things and then discovered that's not where it's at.
Right.
Because I certainly don't have it all. I certainly don't have all the things, and I'm not rich. And so I think though maybe that awareness might.
Is that something that you strive for?
No, because I think everybody's all is a little bit differently. There's some things I'd like, for sure, as far as some trinkets, some little life trinkets of some kind. But I don't think I've ever been disillusioned with, like, if I get this house, then I will be the truest me.
Yeah.
That I could be. I've never felt that.
Yeah.
I've always felt I could be the best me possible in an apartment or in a cardboard, maybe not in a cardboard box. Maybe not in a cardboard box.
Yeah. Let's shit on people.
But that's right. Yeah. Sorry if you live in a cardboard box.
Yeah. They can't watch this anyway.
That's just for me anyway.
Yeah.
But I think that I think that what happened is, and this is like, I had to go to like some of my mentors, another check for those relationships, and ask them. First of all, I started with some of my peers. And I think I even asked you this. I was like, when you hit 40, did you notice
That's exactly what you asked me.
Did you start to notice like a weird shift? And your response was really interesting because you were like, well, my entire life got turned upside down at like 38, I think is what, or 35.
When I got sober?
Yeah.
I was 30.
30. Okay. Yeah, so you're like, my whole life just went whoop like this. So 40 was almost like being 10 years old as an adult.
Right.
That makes sense?
Give or take.
Kind of. Okay. But I did have some conversations with some other dudes who were like, yeah, around 40, I kind of started to feel, I think there's some physiological components, right? But then there's some career components. And so I noticed that there were other dudes because you're not supposed to ask how old ladies are, so I have no idea. But
Right.
that experienced similar concepts. Felt a little wandery, a little lost, a little like starting to feel a little unhinged in some ways.
Yeah.
And so I've just been exploring this thing and walking my way through it. And I think what I have discovered is that it's the precursor to something else that's coming. I don't know what that is yet. And God bless Reggie. Thank you. I know you're probably going to listen to this, but Reggie, Jim, I've had conversations about this with you and some other folks in my life who've kind of given me some direction and some guidance of not necessarily the answer, but like, hey, pay attention to this. Like one of the cool things Jim told me was, whatever these feelings are that you're getting, give them a voice. So like when you're feeling like this, sit down and literally write them out. Like it's something talking to you, which is kind of creepy in a way.
Do it?
I did.
Okay. How was that experiment?
Well, it was funny because it's like, it's my brain, it's my hand.
Right.
And I'm writing, but then the things that are coming out, it's like I'm reading what somebody else is writing a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like instead of fighting how I'm feeling, I'm letting go of it, and then also writing what's coming out. And I was a few times I'd write something and be like, whoa, like, okay.
Yeah.
So, Reggie was brilliant with telling me, as you grow in life, you're developing the skills to kind of get you to the next place, to the next place, and the next place. But we tend to treat our current set of skills like a homing beacon. So if things aren't great, we want to go back. Right? So we tend to revert, when were things good and what was I doing when they were good? And I was like, yeah, that's kind of how I feel. And he's like, I don't think this is that time. He's like, I think that you're growing to move forward. So I was like, whoa. So another really cool thing to think about.
I could talk to him all day.
And then I had my pastor telling me about, putting some focus on myself rather than everything else that my ambition has been pointed at. Like you point your ambition at like your marriage or your kids, or most of us, our vocation.
Yeah.
And consider pointing a little bit of it back at yourself, because it's probably hurting a little bit, So all of these really cool inputs, and now it's like that thing that I was talking to you about a year and a half ago. Yeah. It doesn't feel the same anymore. It's actually kind of exciting. Yeah. But I'm on the constructive side of it, I think.
Yeah.
Like I'm moving towards something.
But you had to work through it to get there.
Yeah, it was like, it's like, I don't know if an analogy, like not everything you go through feels great, even if the end is positive.
Yeah, that's my entire fucking life.
Right? So some people right now are like, that's some really shallow content. Yeah. Duh. Yeah.
But it's a fact.
It isn't always fun. As a matter of fact,
it's rarely fun.
It is probably rarely fun.
It's rarely fun. I don't think you have any growth without pain, right? I don't think you can't grow a muscle without breaking it down first.
Right. That's how it tears.
Yeah, like you have to beat the shit out of it to build it back up. It's the same fucking mentality they use in the military.
Yep.
Right? You got to beat them the fuck up, beat them down to build them back up again, right? It's the exact same thing. I don't think that anybody I'm sure there's examples, but I think that most of the most successful people in life have went through something that was extremely painful at some point in their life that they had to learn how to get through, because if everything, again, it goes back to if everything's handed to you,
right,
then you know what I mean? Then you're just existing.
But then there's also the evolution though, like, cause I'm not going through anything terrible, which was also a weird side of it too. Cause I was I was like, my life is really good right now.
Right.
Like my life is
something
great.
Wasn't.
I don't know if that's the case.
No?
I mean, I kept looking around going, okay, is something really out of joint
you must
here?
Have felt like something was missing.
Am I broken? Like, well, yeah, or something, like really trying to look hard at all these different avenues. I found a few small things.
Yeah.
But I think it was really more of like, if you're in a cocoon, butterflies take I'm a butterfly. It's a lot of effort to get out of that thing.
Yes.
Right? But they're becoming something else. And there's nothing wrong in the middle stage.
Right.
There's nothing wrong.
No.
They were a caterpillar. They spun a cocoon. They became a butterfly. Pile of effort, a ton of work. And there was nothing necessarily wrong with any of it. And
it was just that was the season.
Yeah, like, and I've been through some stuff in my life that was horrible, that was a catalyst for enormous amounts of growth. But this little section here has been weird because I don't think there is anything that's missing. I think I'm like evolving towards something.
Okay.
And it's like growing pains.
So now we're at the point of being excited about it.
I am pretty pumped about it. Every now and then
we
I'm
weren't.
like, no. For a while it was something was wrong.
Yeah.
That was the feeling. Something was wrong.
And I think people can relate to that, is what I'm saying. Like, I
hope so. I mean, I could just be weird.
I mean, we all are.
That's
what I tell Tegan.
Yeah,
all the time. I'm like,
we're all weird.
Yeah, I'm like, that conversation with that dad that I was telling you about, and she was like, I'm really good friends with whatever her name is,
his daughter,
girl, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's when she's like, do you think that we can play together? And I'm like, yeah, of course you can play with her. Do you think you'll be friends with her dad? Absolutely not. And she's like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to be friends with her dad. She's like, why not? And I'm like, because her dad's fucking weird and I don't want to be friends with him. And then she looked at me because this is what we've taught her. And she goes, but Dad, you said everybody's a little weird. Woo! And I was like, you're fucking right, sweetheart.
I have tasted my own medicine.
It's like, you're absolutely correct. Everybody is a little weird. He's just the kind of weird I don't want to hang out with.
He's not my kind of weird.
He's not my kind of weird. That's all I'm saying. One thing I want to make sure that I bring up to dig into a little bit is I wanted to understand what you meant by it when we were talking earlier. Is you said that you've gotten some opportunities recently to talk about, because again, we didn't want to talk about work, business shit here today, right? I wanted people to see a different side of Nathan, right? You go up and you talk about your hero culture and you talk about all these different things when you're teaching at Top Rep and you're coaching and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that you said that you were starting to get a little bit more passionate about, but figuring out how to vocalize it, was something that you said was effect on your destiny.
Well,
tell me what that means.
So I got a chance to, what we were talking about is like almost all the content and all the things that I do are almost always going to be related towards helping small business owners build their business.
Yep.
That's just what it is, right? Yep. And that's great. That pays my bills. That helps other people pay their bills and grow their teams. And that's what I do.
And you're good at it.
But I do think I am good at it.
Good at it.
But there's more to life than that.
Yep.
Right? There's more underlying, like, why have a good culture? Well, you can make the case for the ROI. The ROI is that, you don't have to hire as often. You don't spend as much time training. You retain your people, which always saves you money rather than constantly having to try and find new ones.
The whole pitch on the culture movement.
Yeah, that's all. That's all the culture movement, right?
Right.
What if it's the right thing to do?
Right.
And so then what does that mean? So there's this other layer of truth below good business practice that I've started to find intrigues me, that I think is very interesting. Because,
so real quick question, that whole thing that you just said goes straight back to what we were talking about before, that it all boils down to, this is just my perception, intent.
Yeah. Do you only have a good sales? Do you only have a good culture because you just want to save money?
Yeah. Like, we don't talk about intent enough in this world. And I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to go down a different thing.
Please.
But we don't talk about intent enough, because it comes down to, like, when people are offended by something that somebody said, right? I get people that come at me with that all the time, right? With like, oh, your language and your blah-da-da, right? It's like, okay, but what was my intent behind what I said, right? If I said, that fucking can of LaCroix, right? Yeah. My intent was just to explain that can of LaCroix and whatever also, it is, right?
For a tasty, refreshing beverage, please help yourself to some
LaCroix. Yeah. Ooh, we should get LaCroix to sponsor. But it comes down to intent, right? If somebody says, again, this is way fucking off topic, but just using a word, right? And like, let's go to the far fucking extreme with the N word, right? And that's just the easiest one to pick out. But if somebody says a word that you don't quote unquote like, right? I don't think that there's enough conversation though today about what was the intent behind what you said. What was the context behind what you said? And maybe that's a bad example, but you understand the point. If it right?
Well, and why is your offense decide what somebody else can say anyway? That's a whole nother conversation.
I mean, I think it's part of that conversation though, too, right? But it's about, why don't we talk about context anymore? Why don't we talk about intent? And why is everything so goddamn trigger happy?
Because we don't know each other. Well, that's my knee. Sorry, that's my knee jerk reaction is we don't know each other, right? Like if I went and posted a video,
and we also don't give a fuck about getting to know each other.
That's also part of the problem. Like if I got to burr up my saddle about something, we're in Texas.
Burr up my saddle.
We're in Texas.
Well, you come to fucking Texas and you just start breaking them out. I like it.
Burr up my saddle about something, and I just jump online and I do a knee jerk, what they call a hot take video about something.
Yeah.
And it's a little off from who I am. Like maybe it just is a little, I don't know, whatever. Like for some reason you see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you know me, you're probably going to be like, well, that was weird.
Yeah.
Maybe I should find out what was on his mind about
Nathan
that.
was so racist.
Yeah, I didn't know Nathan was such a racist. But like
isolate that clip.
Yeah,
we're just gonna run that.
That's gonna end up being your ad for this episode.
None of us knew Nathan was as racist as he is. Okay.
I knew it.
He hates Asians.
Oh God.
That's an easy one because they don't fight back.
They're all so smart.
Yeah. Just go do math.
But you'd probably be like, hey, I should probably talk to Nathan and find out what he was thinking. Or you might, rather than taking it the way that it could easily be taken, go, no, I know Nathan.
Right.
I know he meant this, not that. But that's not as fun. And it also requires heavier.
Also not as easy.
It requires heavier lifting mentally and philosophically than to just knee-jerk react, get pissed, and then get likes or whatever, the kudos from your...
feel justified.
Or, you feel like you did something right today.
I am morally fucking superior.
That'll make up for throwing your can in the plastic bin or whatever yesterday.
Do people still do that?
I don't know. I think it's all one can underneath there.
Oh, I don't know. I've never recycled.
It's probably just like 3 different...
Do you recycle?
No.
Okay. I was going to say nerd.
No.
All right. So good.
But I think intent, you're right. Intent should be a focus, number one.
I think it should be paramount.
And then number 2, forgiveness should be real.
Agree.
Forgiveness should be real.
Yes.
Okay. God, I mean, you and I did not grow up in a time where all of our most random thoughts were put out on the internet forever and always.
Right.
I mean, could you imagine, somebody recording the things you said with your buddies in the basement when you were 16?
Yeah.
Like we're all canceled before we get to high school.
Yes.
So that exists now, which
I
means
never knew Nathan was so racist.
A good racist drinks LaCroix. I'm just kidding. That'll probably get you out of.
That won't give me that.
Now LaCroix's not going to sponsor your podcast.
No more sponsorship. Fucking Frenchies.
Oh, Lordy. So,
but I think that also translates. So to circle it around, I think that same idea and that same concept, because we were talking about culture earlier, right? That lands in your business too. And it lands in, because what I deal with on a daily with so many different personalities, right? So for business owners, entrepreneurs, and whoever that are watching and listening to this, or even if you're just part of that culture, right? I have to deal with 25 different personalities, 25 different viewpoints and opinions and lifestyles and the way people see things. And right, like we all deal with all these different people, and then somebody does something, whether it's work related or personal related or whatever it is in that work environment. And if we automatically jump to the judgment or I can't believe they fucking did that, right? What do I have to teach every single fucking day? And I do this. I literally have to have conversations with everybody in my company to say, we make a point of hiring good people to work here. We think everybody here has good, what? Wait for it, intention, right? We think that everybody has good intention here. I don't think anybody here would do anything on purpose to upset you or to do something wrong. Doesn't mean that that's not what happened and you didn't get upset, but let's understand where it was coming from so that we can have a conversation to figure out how we fix that. Because I'm guessing that Bill, I say Bill because I don't have a Bill working for me, that Bill wasn't actually trying to offend you or do something to make your job harder or X, Y, Z. Maybe Bill just fucked up and we can all help Bill so that Bill doesn't do it again. But the immediate reaction is offense or jumping to the assumption that they did it because they're motherfuckers. Does that make sense?
What you're talking about is so huge. It's the idea of believing that the other people around you are good faith actors.
Yeah.
Or believing that they're trying to do the right thing. Believe that first before you believe that they literally just wanted to make your life miserable. Like, because if you think about that argument, why? Okay, let me ask you this question. Why do you think Janet does that? Janet just wants to make my life miserable. Yeah. Do you really
Janet's
think,
just a cunt.
Do you think Janet literally gets up in the morning and goes, how do I make Chris's life absolutely miserable?
And it doesn't mean there aren't Janets out there.
There sure could be.
Right.
But what are the odds that that's the case?
Yeah.
And the answer is very, very slim.
Right.
Right. So when you do get that, and believe me, there have been, I had this one gal that worked with me, the most passive aggressive.
What was her name, Nathan? I'm kidding.
Person I've ever, now every lady that's ever worked with me before they hears this is going, is he talking about me?
Yeah.
But
she knows who she fucking
odds
is.
Odds are like next to zero that she's going to see this. Yeah. But one of the most passive aggressive people I've ever met in my entire life, and she would literally infuriate people on purpose.
Right.
Rare. But for the most part, when you're dealing with people around you, there's a couple of things happening. They don't know that they did it.
Right.
Or they thought they were helping.
Correct.
Right? You ever had that person who's like, oh, I'm just trying to help. And you're like, okay, I actually don't need your help. You're making things worse. But they wanted to help and they were trying.
Wanted to help.
And then you got the folks who just are they're like most of us, they're a little oblivious. They're just in their own world doing their thing, doing what they think is right. Yeah. And they have no idea that they cut you off in traffic.
Right.
Or that when they turn their paperwork in, that the way that you organize it means that you have to reorganize it for them later on. Right. They have no idea. They're just right? Doing their thing.
Right.
I tell you what, this principle you're talking about, you should apply it to everything.
Correct.
Your wife, your husband, your siblings.
Could we tell my wife?
Your parents. you can tell your wife.
Could you tell my wife?
No,
okay.
I can't.
Okay,
that's a different coach.
Okay, all right. Okay. I'm not always trying to piss you off, sweetie. Promise.
But could you imagine? And then furthermore, this is where we start getting those next set of layers, right? How many things do you do?
Yeah.
That somebody else could interpret as you being a thoughtless asshole.
100%.
How many of those things do you do?
I know I do a million of them.
At least some.
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere is looking at my behavior going, why does he do that? I wish. And then I'm sitting here going, I'm not a heartless asshole. Why would I be a heart? But somebody else probably has seen some of my behavior or had to deal with some of my behavior and been like, why does this guy just want to ruin my life?
Right.
Right. And it's probably because I want to ruin your life. It's whoever, depending on who it is.
Right.
But that whole principle is so huge because people would rather jump to an offense. And I think the reason is because we will consistently put on other people the way we feel. Mm-hmm. So when you look at somebody else's behavior and you think they're trying to screw you over, is that because deep down that's kind of your
MO?
Like, is that what you would do?
Right.
If I was them and I did this, it's because I'm trying to screw them over.
So I think that goes back to Janet as well, right? So pretend Janet, who literally gets up in the morning and is trying to make everybody's life hell. We don't, and we're probably not going to take the time, but there's probably something causing that.
Oh, for sure.
As well, that nobody including Janet, has ever taken the time to explore and understand so she doesn't have to be a miserable cunt anymore, right? Like Janet doesn't have to be a miserable cunt, but something happened to Janet to transform her, probably, right? I mean, maybe she's just a psychopath and she was born that way, right? Like
straight up
that
psychopath.
might fucking be the case, right? But like, I think that a larger amount of time, something happened to Janet. Nobody has ever made a connection with her because she hasn't made an effort. Nobody's made an effort with her to be able to have a conversation to say, why are you such a cunt?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying I'm the guy that's going to do that, but like, but well, maybe I can be.
So there's a book out there, and this book is called Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute, I believe it is.
Sounds fancy.
It is fancy.
Anything written by an institute.
It's a fantastic book, and it's written in a real easily digestible way.
Okay.
But you better put your cup on when you read it, because you're going to read it and be like, oh man,
really?
It's going to get you right.
Really?
And it talks about this exact thing. And it's this concept that we all tend to walk around existing inside of our own little box, and our box is ourselves. So
what's it called again?
It's called Leadership and Self-Deception.
Leadership and Self-Deception.
And
I'm going to make everybody in my company read it.
I try to make it as required reading as I can, because we all walk around in this little box, and that box is us, and how we feel is not only how we communicate to others, but it's also how we perceive the way they're communicating to me. Mm-hmm. So imagine Billy comes in, I'm in a really crappy mood, and Billy's a little short with me because he's short on time, but because I'm in a crappy mood, I think he's being a dick.
Right.
And then I'm like, and then maybe now I'm being a dick to Billy.
Yep.
And Billy's going, why is this guy being a dick to me?
Right.
Right. And then maybe Billy gives it a little bit back, but this time it's for real.
Yep.
And so in a lot of that, the book it's just a great book, because I think a lot of it, they say the source of so much of it is a diffusion of us constantly walking around with guilt from not doing what we should do. We could have helped that person. We didn't. We should have taken that trash out because we knew it needed to be done. We didn't. Should have got up with the baby at 3 because we know we heard the baby before our wife, but we didn't. We slept until she woke up.
I've never done that.
Me neither, babe. Me neither. My wife knows I'm lying because she's like, at 3 a.m. he's dead. Like there's nothing wakes him up. But it's a phenomenal book, and so those kinds of principles and that kind of stuff, I've started to really dig in and enjoy that one. Here, I got one for you. You'll love this one. Do the right thing. And what? If you do the right thing, the money will come.
Oh, yeah.
How many times have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, well, what if it doesn't?
Right. I do the right thing a lot and the money didn't come.
So are you doing the right thing so that the money will come?
Right.
Or are you doing the right thing because it's the right thing and you're just having faith that the money will come, but that's not the defining factor as to whether you do the right thing or not?
Intent.
Right?
Yeah.
Because as you were talking about intent, I'm thinking about that. I'm like, people go, hey, you just do the right thing and the money will come. And I'm like, that's not necessarily true.
Right.
There's a lot of really well-intentioned people who went out of business and they didn't do the wrong thing. I mean, 2020 happened just a few years ago. Some people's businesses got deemed non-essential.
Yeah.
And they went out of business. They didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
Well, I mean, maybe they did, but I don't know. But you guaranteed there was somebody who was doing it all the right way.
Right.
And they were non-essential, and their restaurant they dreamed of having a restaurant their whole life.
Right.
And it's gone.
Right.
So that's where this concept of like your own destiny and what you control, that's kind of started to become a little bit of a passion for me, because I think we get too wrapped up in, and this is me included, in the results we're seeking.
Yeah.
We want a certain set of results, and we will lie, cheat, steal, kill, grind, 10x, doesn't matter, to get this certain set of results.
But the problem is that if we don't focus, or not focus, but at least identify the results that we want, we're never going to hit anything either.
I don't think the results are actually in your hands. That's where I go a little bit different.
At all?
I believe that nobody has more control over you than you, right? However, the ultimate responsibility for the results that you get, I don't think you ultimately control them. In other words, you have the most influence, but you do not absolutely control them.
No, you can only control your effort and your output.
You can control your effort,
yeah.
right? Which to me it does a couple of things. Like, I think it should take the pressure off. Like, in some cases, you got to work and you got to put in
the pressure too.
But then it kind of puts the pressure on too, a little bit.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, well, what if it doesn't work? Then I may have to do something different and put the grind in there too. So, and Reggie and I talked about this one time, tension, right? But what I don't want people hearing, and this is where I think like that shallow mentality or shallow thinking is dangerous, is when you're trying to tell somebody that all the results that they've ever experienced in their life or who they are now is because of all the decisions they made in the past. And I'm like, sorry, that's not true. And that should be a weight lifted.
Yeah.
Because you might be in a really, really bad position. It isn't necessarily your fault. Now, don't get me wrong. We put ourselves in bad positions all the time. Okay. But, you didn't give yourself that disease, or you weren't the drunk driver who hit the car. You weren't the person who made you, had to lose a leg or what. I mean, just need, and those are really, really extreme examples.
Sure.
But like, if you have a propensity for addiction, they're finding that that's quite possibly a genetic thing that can get passed down, right? You didn't do that. Now, you've got a responsibility now that you have to work with.
Now we have to make a choice.
Yes, you still have some culpability here,
yes.
But you have a battle that other people don't, and that battle isn't necessarily your fault.
No, what you do with it is.
What you do with it is.
Yes.
And so what I think people do is they tend to do one of two things. They'll crush themselves underneath what I believe is a false truth. Like, that's not true. There's some truth to it, but it is not true. And they will crush themselves underneath that truth. Or they'll build themselves underneath that truth. Look at all that I have.
Right.
Look at what I've done.
Right.
And then looking down on the peons and putting out social media posts about how they can get on their own pedestal too.
Kind of like when I sit in first class and look back through that fucking...
at all the peasants.
Like, fuck.
I know, right?
God,
They have to pay for their food.
And when they come and they try to come through and use my bathroom, the anger that just overcomes me.
Dare they? How dare they?
So mad.
I always try to leave a trail of crumbs from my chips when I come through first class to use the bathroom.
Yes.
I wait to brush
That
myself
is not
off
your
until...
I've never been so happy. This was so bad. But like, I literally was on a flight where the fucking flight attendant stopped somebody and was like, "This is not your cabin, ma'am." And made her fucking turn around and go to the back of the plane to use the bathroom.
You got some character flaws, Eric.
I liked that lady. Like, we were going to be friends later. No, I'm not really that.
Meanwhile, there's like 20 people stacked up in the one bathroom.
One bathroom for like 80 fucking rows, and there's only 6 of us. Sorry, I'm a dick.
That's okay.
Okay. So at the end of these shows, because I'm sure you've watched so many of them.
All of them.
That you know. But at the end of the show, I always know that there's something that I either did not expand on enough or that I didn't bring up that was in the back of your mind. And I always want to make sure that I give the guests the opportunity to bring to the table, literally, what it is that may have been on their mind that I forgot, or something that God knows we took 12 left turns, right, on different things. And if there's something you're like, ooh, I would have really liked to bring this up because I want to leave the audience with, whatever it is that might be on Nathan's mind. And I'll never forget the first conversation we had when we started coaching. And I was like, is it Nate or Nathan? That was very uncomfortable.
Well, I prefer Nathan.
Yes. If you prefer it, then that's all it should be.
I get called Nate, and I will answer to it.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't. You should. You absolutely fucking should not. I'd be like, nope. Have you seen the interview with Matthew McConaughey?
Why? No.
They asked him if he goes by Matt, and his mom, like, he was in a kindergarten and was like going out to the recess or some shit, and his mom was there, and some kid yelled Matt, and he turned around, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "What?" He yelled my name. She's like, "That is not your fucking name.
Your name.
I named you Matthew, blah, 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 blah,
oh,
blah.
Wow.
And you will only respond to Matthew." And he's like, "So my name is Matthew."
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So, and this is funny. This might come back to bite me, but my name's actually Nathaniel.
Oh, okay.
And my mom doesn't even call me Nathaniel.
Really?
Nobody calls me Nathaniel.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. If I make a crude enough joke in front of my mom on occasion, she'll say Nathaniel.
Will she?
Yeah, once in a while. But I mean, I could probably count.
Was that after somebody? Was it Nathaniel after somebody?
No.
Oh.
No. So
Interesting.
that was just.
And it went to Nathan.
That's
okay.
what.
Anyway, call him Nathan. If you call him Nate, he'll fucking punch you in the dick. So.
No, I won't. Maybe I will.
Maybe you will. You never know. You never know. All right, sorry. Back to last thoughts.
I don't think I did. I came in here without an agenda.
Okay. What do you want to leave everybody with?
Use what you know to be kind.
Okay. What's that mean?
I think it means that many of us have talents, we have abilities, and we have skills, and the point of them should be to love others. Not to lord it over somebody else or to try and beat somebody else, either physically or I mean maybe in competition. Like if you're playing tennis and you're a better tennis player, then by all means beat that person with your talents and skills.
Sure.
But fundamentally, like I think we were put here for each other.
See, that's what I was trying to ask earlier.
And we should be, I mean, I believe that like my first intention should always be to glorify God. And then, and to love God, and then also to love mankind. And I think that I do the first with doing the second as well. Like they work in harmony together. They don't always in some cases, I think, but that's always through the eyes of man. So what am I trying to say? So if you imagine Tegan and the number of times you've said no to her because you knew saying yes to that thing would have been bad. Mm-hmm. Were you not loving her? No, you were loving her, because you were doing what was best for her, even though she didn't agree. I feel like we as human beings, we have to make those decisions regularly. You should err on love always. But from time to time, you're going to do something that's going to piss somebody off, but you also know that you can't do that because that would be an unloving thing to do to them. Furthermore, I always try to see things through the double pane, the lens, right? Like some people are going to say no to me, or some people are going to deny me, or some people are going to do things to me or for me that I might not agree with. And I would hope that some people are probably doing that out of love. Some people might not be, but that's really weird, murky waters to navigate. So for me, then I just know God's always in control anyway. So I don't necessarily have to worry too much about that, but I can't. The only thing I can do anything about is kind of how I feel and how I act and what I do with what I have. Mm-hmm. And so I don't do it perfectly, but I think that, man, if it's such a kumbaya message, but it's
no, but it's real, right? I mean, for me, it comes down to acceptance, right? For me, it's acceptance. Again, one of the biggest things, it's the biggest lesson that I ever learned in AA, right? In getting sober, was I never accepted anything, right? And now, no matter what comes my way, good, bad, or otherwise, I've just learned to accept that that's how it was supposed to be. And then how I respond to it is all that really matters.
The next question, right?
That's all I can do. I can't do shit about what just happened, right? I can be upset for a minute, right? Like I can be like, that's fine. But how fast can I regroup from that initial feeling that I technically don't really have any control over, right? Like I can't control my initial, thought.
I think that's true for
right?
sure.
But what I can control is what I do next, right? One of our guests who had on, the Mark Lundholm, comedian, one of his biggest bits is first thought wrong. First thought wrong.
I think I saw him.
Yeah,
didn't I?
Yeah, he's hilarious, right? But it's for alcoholics, right? Because it's like we always have first thought wrong, and then second thought wrong, third thought wrong, fourth thought wrong, and then maybe by the time I get to fifth thought, but now how fast can I cycle through those thoughts? How fast can I get from 1 to 7? Because first thought is, I want to bury that motherfucker in a pile of horse shit and light him on fucking fire and blah, blah. Okay, first thought wrong. Second thought, I'm going to punch him in the dick. No, wrong. And and it's like, okay, and we get to 7, like, I wonder where he's coming from.
I wonder how bad a day that person's having.
Right? How fast can I get from 1 to 7?
God, that's so good. That's training.
And sorry, Mark, I 100% fucking stole that from you.
That's training.
It is.
That's mental training.
It's literally what I've worked on with my coach for the last 3 years, is the mental training of that, of how fast can I get back to where I want to be, where before it might take me 15 minutes and now it takes me 45 seconds or whatever, right? Like I'm still a prick maybe for 45 seconds, but I'm not a prick for 15 minutes. And I catch myself. Now can I get that down to 30 seconds? Now can I get that down to 15 seconds? Now can I get that down to 5? You know what I mean? Like how quick can I be self-aware of
and the less likely you are to have to apologize for something.
Correct. Yeah, that's less step 10s I have to do.
Step 10s.
For all us drunks out there, that's less step 10s.
Yeah,
so, I think that's powerful.
I think that's fantastic, and it's powerful, and it is a mental challenge. I think like for me, I'll write things on my hands that I need to keep in my brain.
Yeah,
I'm working on these two things. Like I think recently it's been patience and purity, and I would like just write them in ink on my hand right here because they're kind of discreet, but I see them all the time. Because think about how often the top of your thumb is pointed at you, like it's all the time.
You know where else you should do that? On the golf course for a swing thought. Write it on your glove.
Write it on your glove. Oh, that's really good.
I used to write on my ball.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so like,
and then you're looking at your ball and you're like,
and I'd be like, and before I set it down on a tee, I'd be like, 30
seconds,
swing out or whatever it is, like whatever thing I was working on, I'd write it on the ball.
You got to get it in your brain a lot, and then I think it's not magic. Okay, you're not manifesting something out of reality that didn't exist before.
You're rewiring your brain.
Yeah, you're simply reprogramming. You're putting new software into your head.
Yep. That's a real thing.
It is real. It is 100% real.
Yeah.
And once again, because I had this conversation with my wife, we were talking about this like manifestation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't believe in manifestation.
No.
I don't believe that like I can just make something up out of thin air because I focused on it. I do believe that we can reprogram ourselves to pay attention to certain things or to catch certain things at a certain time. Just like you can train an animal to do we can train ourselves to do stuff, and we can do that with our brain.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we're going to make something pop up out of nowhere.
I can't manifest $10 million, but if I manifest the habits and the things that I need to do every day to be able to make $10 million and I do it well enough.
If I create a plan and I think about my plan
all the fucking time,
then the opportunities that coincide with that plan will start to pop up to me because I'll be looking for them.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they weren't always there.
Right.
I just wasn't paying attention.
Correct.
And so that's a huge thing, is finding whatever the trigger is that helps your brain to constantly be remembering a thing that you want to work on or keep in mind. Yeah. That's super cool too.
And a lot of times, people, you got to get a coach for that.
Some things are harder than others.
Yeah, we need help with that. That's not shit that we can figure out. I mean, I think that's the personal journey that I've went through over the last 5, 8, 9 years, is understanding like, I can't figure all that shit out on my own. I need to read more. I need to talk to more people. I need to find a mentor. I need to have a coach. I need to have a coach with a transactional relationship that says, at this time, you're going to give me this hour of your fucking time, and you're going to give me the information that I want in that time. Not, hey, whenever you got a minute, because maybe I need that fucking minute on Tuesday at 9 a.m. when we have it scheduled so that I can make sure that I'm getting that information. I think that's really important. I think that the people that discount that are missing out on a lot of growth. I really do.
I 100% do. And there's no way around trying to have people in your life that can speak into it. And honestly, generally, the best ones are probably going to be a little older than you.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
You should have some people your age around you.
Yep.
Because I can tell you right now,
but they're probably going through some of the same shit you are.
Yeah, but like if I wanted to know how to use Instagram better, I'm not going to ask my mom.
Right.
Okay. Or create a better strategy for that. But geez, if I want to know how to help put my daughter to sleep a little bit better,
call Reggie.
Whatever it is. So just don't be afraid to talk to people a little bit older than you too. And if you feel like they also will have more patience with you.
Yeah.
Generally, especially if they're putting themselves out there as willing to talk to you, they'll have a little more patience. If you just recognize somebody that's old and go, hey, you're old. Can I talk to you?
You've been through a lot of shit.
You look like you were drugged through a knothole.
You look like you like coffee. Can we have some? Yeah. That's funny.
Not the best approach.
Nathan, this has been amazing. I think this might be, let's see how long. This might be like our second longest episode.
No. Was Pate the first?
Yeah. Yeah, he was like 2 fucking hours. But we went like an hour 40. So like we kicked ass.
Well, hopefully it was good and it didn't suck.
It was honest to God, like this was an amazing episode. I don't give a fuck if anybody else watches it. It was good for me. So thank you. Nathan, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
For hanging out with me today. We're going to go play a little golf tomorrow and we'll go grab some dinner tonight. But everybody out there, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. There's no fucking way that you didn't get something out of this. So since you did, and since I have no sponsors, since Zen won't sponsor me yet, or LaCroix, please share this shit. Please share this with people that you know that you think could get something from this and gain something from this so that we can help hopefully as many people as humanly possible. And remember, everybody, to be authentic. Get the fuck out.
Be authentic. Get the fuck out if you can't be authentic. Get the fuck out if you can't be authentic. Yeah. Swipes.